Hey, welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, YouTube. Let's go ahead and continue MSQ playthrough. I think I might just keep it on Dark Knight. No, I'll keep switching. Keep switching. We'll pick up on Samurai. We'll turn in on Dark Knight. I don't know what we solved anything exactly, but we've given Fortola something to think about at least. And I've found something new to think about too. I don't know about you, Mask, but the visions only come to me every now and then. And the way Fordola kept wincing, though, I got the feeling she's having them almost all the time. It's a lot of bad memories to deal with. I wonder, could there be some fundamental difference between one who was born with the echo and one who was artificially imbued with it? Well, the Immortal Flames have been scouring the research facility ever since the liberation. There's a chance they may have some news for us. General Aldine's there overseeing the investigation. Let's go and pay him a visit, shall we? General Aldine is inside, aye? Will you be joining him? What news? You spoke with Fordola, I take it. Yes. As expected, she didn't say very much, but it wasn't a total waste of time. Arnvald noticed something odd about her. He thinks she might be having visions almost constantly, which is not how the Echo normally works. Have you found anything here which might explain why it's so different for her? We've been hard-pressed just to organize the research materials, let alone study them. To be frank, I'd welcome the Scion's expert assistance if you have time to lend a hand. It's the one that Kryle was in, I believe. The device in which Kryle was held seems even more ominous now you know its purpose. The surrounding pods are marked Supply Subject, while this one bears the label Master Subject. The Onworks received a request from the Alliance to analyze these devices, and I've been recording everything of interest. Did you notice the labeling? All the pods are designed to drain the aether of the occupant, save that one right there. Unlike the others, the interior has been fitted with an array of sensors to measure etheric waveforms. For what purpose, however, I couldn't tell you. Leave this section to me. Oh, alright. Calm down. So many bodies. Every one of them a victim of these experiments. Few shows any signs of external injury. From what we've been able to determine, they perished from forcible aether extraction. Such a miserable way to die. I know little and less of science, so any light you can shed on this facility's operations would be much appreciated. MSQ, shall we start with you? Taken in combination with the testimonies of Kryle and Thancred, I do begin to see exactly what the Imperials were attempting here. The enhancement procedure entailed infusing a single candidate with aether siphoned from a multitude of supply subjects. As for the master subject, in this case Kryle, patterns of her etheric activity would provide the model upon which they would artificially engineer the candidate's aura. In other words, they were trying to recreate Kryle's echo. I believe so, which would explain our prisoner's present state. Kryle's possessed of an unrivaled ability to hear the whispers of the soul. It seemed probable that the procedure engineered the same acute sensitivity in Fordola. Soldiers who guard Fordola, many of them lost friends and family to the skulls. There's a sentry at her door night and day. She can't help sensing their thoughts and seeing their past. But you don't just see that past, you live it. All the emotions, all the pain. Imagine what it'd do to you. You'd never be the same again. Indeed, as you may recall, Isel was completely transformed by a single glimpse of her Svealgar's past. Abdullah has been forced to experience the agony of those whose lives she destroyed. The guilt must be unbearable. That explains her request to be executed. Sounds to me like a kind of justice. Regardless, she can suffer on for now. We have more pressing matters to consider. The results of these experiments have been relayed back to Garlemald. It will be not to stop the Empire from repeating the trick. They could give the echo to anyone, to an entire legion. We must be ready. We must learn all we can of those god-forsaken procedures. Fordola remains our best source of information. She will not be getting her wish. Not yet. Right. Keep faith, lass. If you are to convince others to follow you, you must believe what you're telling them. People will respond to passion, but not if it's feigned. I understand. Thank you, General. We should leave the flames to it. Let's go. Turn it in on Dark Knight. Go looking for answers about the Echo and end up getting schooled by Robon. Get more evidence that I don't know what I'm doing. No wonder people listen to him and not me. General Aldine is a veteran of countless campaigns, Lise. You cannot compare yourself to a commander of his experience. I know, but I also know that I couldn't convince that mom to give up and go home. Makes me realize how much we rely on his authority, and how much I still have to learn. I wonder what he'll do when everything is settled. I mean, it's his homeland. After going to the trouble of winning it back, might he not want to stay? It's a country which countless refugees now face, to continue the life they built in Ul'dah or start again in the land of their birth. MSQ, a moment. I'm newly returned from Ul'dah with a message from the Sultana. Her Grace desires an audience with you. She understands that you have responsibilities here, but asks that you visit the palace at your earliest convenience. Well, I must away and attend to other business. Until next time, my friends. An audience with the Sultana. Depending on the nature of her consultation, this might be the perfect opportunity to inquire about the General's future plans. Yes, we'd all like to know about those, Alphanode, but not everyone's as comfortable interrogating the royalty as you. Take no notice of him, MSQ. You know what? We'll just stay on Dark Knight. The question of how to put the Mad King's treasures to good use shows no sign of answering itself. Show will be about it, Arnvald. I'm at your beck and call. And I should be getting back to my own tasks. I'll organize a squad to head down into the ruins and then start preparing for the big meeting. Oh, send Nanamo my regards, MSQ. On ours too, if you please. We shall see you on your return. It's been a while since we've been in Ul'dah. At least for MSQ. Let's see what I did there.
I thank you for answering my summons in these most interesting times. You have been busy. The liberation of Alamigo will have far-reaching consequences, and there is a matter upon which I would seek your counsel. I speak of Rauban and his future. All know the tale of his rise from penniless refugee to member of the Syndicate and General of the Immortal Flames. Yet though he has come to call Uldar home, it will never be his homeland. He is a son of Alamigo. And now that she is free, I thought it only a matter of time before he sought my leave to return to her. Indeed, I had resigned myself to his loss. Suffice it to say, I was greatly surprised to hear him speak so lightly of handing over the reins in Alamigo and retaking his place at my side. I will welcome him with open arms, of course. He is my most trusted advisor and my dearest friend. But I have known the man a long time, and beneath that steely gaze, I spied a flicker of doubt. Whether Rauban chooses to remain in Uldar or return to Alamigo, I only wish that he do so with a heart unburdened by guilt or regret. Yet, how can he freely make such a choice, knowing how much I depend on him? It is past time that I learned to discharge my duties as a Sultana alone. I must go forth and see my realm with my own eyes, and hear the wind with my own ears. Might I have your company for a brief adventure? Wonderful. Allow me a moment to change into something a touch less conspicuous, and I will join you outside.
I like how she's like, I have to do it on my own. Will you come with me? Sure. On your own 2 feet with your own eyes and ears. Let me be your guide. Oh, I know what she means. She means to do without Rauban. Oh, and she's in the gear and stuff that she was when we first met her in the beginning of A Realm Reborn. What do you think of Lilira, the merchant's daughter? This is the disguise I don when I wish to leave the palace and observe my subjects unnoticed. Ordinarily, Papashan would accompany. For this particular outing, I need an advisor, not a mind... whatever that said. Not a minder. I don't know what a minder is. And that is why I requested your company. Over the course of your many adventures, you have met people from all walks of life in every corner of Eorzea. I would like to make use of your worldly experience. Now let us be on our way. Our first destination is Stone's Throw, just beyond the Gate of Nald. Look upon this procession of tattered tents. These refugees camp in squalor, at the mercy of the elements and Thanalin's predators both. The city's mighty walls offer safety, but the streets overflow with people as it is, and unless blessed by the hand of Nald himself, no refugee could ever hope to afford a dwelling in Uldar. 20 years have passed since the fall of Alamigo, and 5 since the calamity, yet the plight of the poor has grown more desperate, not less. Sultana, the blame falls upon me. You've done your best, Your Grace. Then my best has not been good enough. Shall we press on? I would like to follow the road to the unholy air. It was here, in this wholly unremarkable place, that my mother and father met their doom. I was but a child at the time. My parents were returning from an inspection of our interests in eastern Thanalan when an untimely rockslide crushed their carriage. To this day, it is not certain if the incident was simply misfortune or an expertly planned assassination. Rauban once offered to reopen the investigation and bring me the truth he assumed I must surely crave, but I refused. Even if my parents' deaths were orchestrated by the monitors, we could only have brought their hirelings to justice. The true villains, those who plotted to put me on the throne as a biddable puppet, were ever beyond our reach. Thus did I plan to strip the merchants of their power and place our nation in the hands of its citizens. Quite unaware of the consequences of my actions, would have for you and yours. I shudder to think how many goodly souls paid the price of my naivete. I am no longer a child of reciting words with witless obedience, and I will not be used as a pawn in the monitress' damnable games. Forgive me my outburst. You are one of the few people to whom I can feel I can speak my mind. Come, let us return to Ul'dah and visit the Colosseum. For the moment I became a Sultana, I found myself thrust into an endless parade of document signing and ceremonies. For years, I simply signed where I was told to sign and sat where I was told to sit, blissfully oblivious to what any of it meant. Yet one good thing did come from that ignominious chapter in my life. What was during an official visit to the Colosseum that I first met Raoban. The match I had been invited to attend was not all what I expected. They had pitted the Bull of Alamigo against some dozen or so rival gladiators. Blinkered though I was, I would not stand for so obvious an injustice, and demanded to see a fair fight, one man against another. My royal wish was duly granted. It was not until later that I learned of the gambling ring which had arranged for Raoban to die on the sands that day. Regardless, my intervention meant that Raoban had but a single opponent to dispatch, which he duly did. And when he knelt before me to receive the winner's purse, he swore that he would one day offer me his blade in service. Surrounded as I was by liars and manipulators, I confess I dismissed it as a pleasant piece of theater. But as you know, Raoban is a man of his word. Though it took him another 5 years of fighting on the blood sands, he amassed a fortune so great as to buy not only his freedom, but a seat on the syndicate. And then I had my blade. Really leaning into the echo as of late.
You mustn't! The danger is too great! Please, Your Grace, come back! I beg of you!
The left and the right. Oh, the hop.
It seems you're the one who needs looking after, Master Shum. Raban!
Your Grace, I have kept the promise made.
So you have, and in turn, so too shall I keep mine. With your winnings, you have become one of the 6 most wealthy souls in all Ul'dah, and so, as tradition dictates, Rauben Aldin, you have earned yourself a seat on the Syndicate. May your new station garner you still greater glories.
I am honored, Your Grace, and vow to serve with every fiber of my being from this day till my last. Long live the Sultana, and long live Ul'dah!
Words cannot well express what that man means to me. There are others who care deeply for my well-being, of course. Papa Shan's love for me is that of a grandsire for his grandchild, but upon matters of governance, I cannot turn to bodyguards and maidservants for counsel. Raoban, with the authority of his syndicate's position, was the first sword I could wield. It was the only edge which could cut the strings that bound me. We must make haste. My absence will not go unnoticed by the Sultan sworn for long. There are other places I would visit. To the Ozanith Asuri. Where is that? Thaumaturge Guild? Okay. The calamity threatened, Raban led the Alliance forces into battle on the plains of Cartano. I remained here. I prayed with all my heart that Archon Louis I would have the power to rouse the 12. Since that day, I have made a custom of visiting this shrine during each of my little excursions. Here I seek the blessing of Thal, reflect upon my choices, and ask myself if I am fulfilling my duties as Sultana. You are rightly celebrated as a champion because you have led the line in 100 battles for the good of Eorzea. In much the same way, I believe the measure of a monarch lies in how she leads her people in times of adversity. If I am to be Sultana worthy of the name, I cannot turn a blind eye to the troubles facing Ul'dah. I have chosen my path, Mask. With Alamigo now freed from imperial chains, I finally see a way to aid the refugees. Already, many displaced Alamigans seek to begin the long trek home. To facilitate that process, I have made a small contribution, an artisan's school in Rogger's Reach for any who wish to learn new trades. Realistically, however, it will take years for such training to yield tangible benefits. But we do not have years. These people will need shelter and employment if they are to survive, and this time, the Ul'dah Treasury shall provide. Precisely where and how to allocate the necessary funds is, of course, another question. Why not seek the advice of one who employs refugees? Might you ask a member of the syndicate for advice? I would do the second option. A wise suggestion. Mayhap a visit to the Gold Saucer is in order. Its proprietor is a member of the syndicate, and he is one of the few who pay refugees a fair wage. I wonder, are you acquainted with Godbert Mandeville? Well, he is a most generous man, if something of an eccentric. Let us make our way to the landing, and I will see that word is sent to the Gold Saucer. Godbert should be only too glad to receive us. Could I just go to the saucer? Because I've been there. No? Okay, we're going to the landing. Oh, sorry for yawning, too. I did not get too much sleep last night, but I'm making do with coffee. I have ridden aboard a public airship before, but this shall be my first visit to the Gold Saucer. Must confess to some excitement. I never knew you to come here for MSQ. I'd heard descriptions of its splendor, yet I never dreamed it would be so bright and inviting. No, I couldn't possibly. We did not come here to fritter away the royal coin. Godbert will be expecting us. Come, let us head directly to the lounge and ignore these gaudy temptations. I believe this is where we are to meet Lord Mandeville. Shall we sit while we await his coming? My apologies, Your Grace. I have kept you waiting. No apologies are necessary, Cuthbert. My request was sudden, and you were kind to make yourself available at such short notice. When the Sultana herself comes calling, there is not more important engagement. As to the purpose of my visit, before I bumbly stumble upon more words, I would have your thoughts on how the Crown might best aid the refugees residing in Thanlin. You are aware, I am sure, that many of Alamigo's displaced sons and daughters long to return to their newly liberated homeland, and you are also aware of how they will suffer without shelter and work to sustain them. I would use our nation's wealth to spare them that suffering. What advice have you for me on the matter of how it might best be distributed? The unusual circumstance of our meeting and your Grace's choice of companion would suggest to me a desire for an honest and unvarnished opinion. I shall give you one. My advice to you is stop. Taxing Ulda's wealth to save Alamigan refugees is a terrible, terrible idea. You oppose my proposition? Most emphatically. I agree with your Grace that the refugees must have housing and employment. But what profit is there for Ulda in this arrangement? Profit? After all you have done for Girabanya's displaced, I thought you the very last person to seek to benefit from their misfortune. Forgive me, Your Grace, but you appear to be laboring under a misapprehension. It is a fine endeavor to support one's fellow man. I fear, however, that your stance is one born of pity. Your intent is to save the refugees, is it not? For all our potential, we are indolent creatures by nature. If unconditional charity is all we know, then we begin to rely upon it, expect it. And then we must consider Ulda's own poor and downtrodden. Should they hear of you spending the nation's coin, not to improve their lot, but to nurture the distant citizens of Alamigo, it is unlikely they will applaud your generosity. Surely it is not your Grace's intention to foster new resentments, but to spread goodwill. Indeed, then any support I pledge to the refugees must promote self-sufficiency, whilst also serving the interests of the people of Ulda. Exactly so. Such an arrangement will create a far more equitable relationship with the returning Alamigans, even as it generates the revenue required to win the approval of your subjects. You have given me much to ponder, Lord Mandeville. I thank you for your candor. Hello? What the glitchy matrix? Prophet, that never crossed my mind. But standing about lamenting my naivete will not do anyone good. I shall consider my lesson learned and press on. MSQ, as you perchance acquainted with any successful merchants, if my attempt at philanthropy is obliged to reap a profit, it would seem wise to consult someone with a knack for business. Tataru! Ordinarily, I could not trust any agent of the East Aldenar Trading Company, but if you hold this Hancock fellow in high esteem, I am content to be led by you. You may repay my faith by journeying to distant Kugane and speaking with him on my behalf. Eager though I am to visit those shores, I have not the leisure for a lengthy sea voyage. Now, assuming you will travel as adventurers and wont to do, I shall await your report by the 8th rite in Ulda. Fair journey to you, MSQ, and a swift one if you please. Well, that's what teleporting's for, my dear. Hey, where's Tatsuru? MSQ, to what do I owe the pleasure? Or are you here on business? Beg your pardon? Her Grace the Sultana would have my opinion on how to best invest the West. I almost got through that. The wealth of Ulda? My dear MSQ, I have you to thank for this recognition, I am sure. I am flattered that you came to me, truly flattered. But why settle for a lowly apprentice when you could have the master? Upon matters of profit, there is no living soul better qualified to advise Her Grace than Chairman Lolorito, man whose morning exertions are said to fill his garderobe with gold. I should be happy to arrange a meeting for you, say at the Scion's former headquarters in Thenelin. The Waking Sands would seem a suitably neutral venue for negotiations, don't you think? Fare you well, MSQ, and may your dealings prove fruitful. I don't want to deal with this bitch. You kidding me? That's a terrible idea. And I hope the Sultana agrees. Fuck Lolorito. Welcome back. Did your merchant friend have any useful advice to share? With Lolorito? And you agreed to this? I am well aware of his standing in the field of business, but I had hoped to keep the Monitress at arm's length, and him in particular. Nay, I cannot live in fear of the man. I must learn how to treat with him if I am to rule Ulda effectively. Very well. I will meet with Lolorito. Let's go on ahead to the Waking Sands and prepare for his coming. So this is where the Scions first congregated. I've heard many tales, but never had occasion to visit. To work then. The hour of meeting draws near, and I would gather my thoughts. Pray see to it that we have the appointed room to ourselves. Glad that it just teleported us here and I didn't have to use an Aetheryte ticket or fly.
A personal summons from the Scions. This must be important business indeed. Though, if it concerns anything so underhand as an assassination, I fear I can be of little help. You have made your point. 'Tis indeed unsettling to find oneself seated across from an impassive mask. There, would this better please your grace? Or should I address you as Lady Lilira? Hmm?
Nay, the deception has served its purpose. I am glad to see you found amusement in my little jest, Lord Lolorito, but shall we proceed to the business at hand?
By all means. I must say I am most eager to hear your proposal.
Simply put, I would aid the refugees camped in Thanalan in their efforts to return to Alamigo. The reparations you paid in the wake of your earlier misdemeanors will be used to fund the endeavor, together with the fortune seized from the late Teleji Adeleji's estate. But this plan is not intended to benefit the displaced alone. I would make of this an investment which shall enrich Uldar and Alamigo both. And who better to consult on matters of profit than the wealthiest man in all of Thanalan? I beseech you then, Lord Lolorito, share with us your mercantile wisdom.
seem your grace has matured beyond acts of earnest yet misplaced charity. Pray tell me more. To summarize, in return for facilitating the repatriation of refugees and assisting in the establishment of new industry in Alamigo, you ask that a proportion of all subsequent profits be promised to Uldar. Huh, I am impressed, Your Grace. 'Tis an elegant solution, albeit one lacking certain crucial details, specifically which industry and where.
How swiftly you identified the weakness in my plan, just as I knew you would. Your travels have taken you across the length and breadth of Gir Abania, and you know the land far better than I. Which of the settlements you visited would best provide a home for our refugees? Which has the greatest potential to flourish, given the appropriate investment?
The Saltery doesn't house anybody, has vast land, and for turn of business, I would say there's profit to be made in the business of salt. Lagana is very small. Eligiri probably even smaller. I would say this, like, in terms of housing refugees in it, no, Saltery.
Ah, yes, that desolate little village on the shore of Loch Sel. I know the Sultry and its products well. The Imperial invasion brought an end to their more widespread distribution, much to the dismay of many a wealthy gourmand, myself included. Salt has ever been a transformative ingredient, and in this instance, I dare say, it could transform a modicum of effort into a mountain of gil.
The local citizens will need to be consulted, of course, but I trust the East Aldenar Trading Company can be relied upon to provide its assistance in negotiating a mutually beneficial arrangement.
Naturally, Your Grace. I shall dispatch representatives well versed in the extraction of this white gold and wring every last ounce of profit from its production. The Loch's bounty will contribute to Alamigo's enrichment, whilst easing the burden on the bull's aching shoulders, just as Your Grace desired.
A deal is struck then.
I fear it may be many years before I feel comfortable taking part in such negotiations, but I shall not complain. We have piqued Lolorito's interest and secured his invaluable expertise. Thank you, Amask. Could not have done it without you. Of course, our course is decided. I shall return to the palace and have my ministers begin work on implementing the particulars of the plan. If I could prevail upon you one more time, I would ask that you convey the details of our negotiations to Commander Hext on your return to Alamigo. My thanks again. Together we have laid the groundwork for an endeavor which promises to benefit the peoples of Alamigo and Ul'dah both. Mask, you're back. What did Nanamo... Oh, sorry. Are you allowed to talk about your audience with the Sultana? So, Ravan says he's going to return to Ul'dah, but she isn't sure he wants to. Tell us something we don't know, but I'm pleased to hear she's committed to helping our refugees come home. And this plan to revitalize the sultry does make a lot of sense. Quite how you convinced her to seek Lolorito's help is another question. After all that has happened, he is the very last person I would expect her to turn to for advice. But on a more particular note, Lise, assuming the interim government elects to accept Ulda's proposal, I have one caveat I should like you to include in the bargain. Alamigo must be permitted to cover a portion of the investment. We have a fortune at our disposal, after all, and allowing Ulda to provide the entirety of the capital will afford Lolorito too much control. Honestly, Alphinaud, it's like Kugane never happened. What exactly does a ruthless profiteer have to do to earn your trust? But yes, you do make a good point. First things first, though, we need to discuss this proposal with the Sultry's residents. Whisker, how do you fancy explaining the Sultana's plan to your grandfather? I'd like to hear what Watt thinks of the idea before agreeing to anything. Right away, Commander. Would you mind coming along, Amask? I might need you to fill in the details. Then I shall come as well. Should Watt wish to discuss figures, my knowledge of the nation's finances may prove useful. We're gonna go here. So we don't have flying. What manner of mischief brings you young'uns to Old Watt this time? They want to rebuild the Sultry, Grandad. Amask, tell him about the deal. Well, bugger me. We've never had the coin or the hands to put the place back to how it was. It sounds like that's about to change. There's just one small wrinkle in your plan. It doesn't account for all the nasties queuing up to eat anyone who goes near the shore. The king used to send soldiers to cull the buggers, but the Imperials weren't about to help the likes of us. Don't worry, Granddad. We'll take care of all that. Commander Hext has been talking about starting up regular patrols, and I'm sure she'd assign me to the lock if I asked. I appreciate that, Whisker, my lad. Truly I would. So, does this mean you've gotten better than that blade of yours? They've been training, but mostly to kill Imperials. You've some experience hunting monsters, don't you, Amask? Think you could cast an eye over a few of the local beasties and teach me how to deal with them? Let's not waste any time then. See you by the lock. Whilst you are busy attending to the local fauna, I shall have Master Walt explain to me exactly what is required to restore the Sultry to its former glory. Good hunting. Denimask, I've got a spyglass here you can use to take a closer look at the pests. Once you've gotten their measure, tell me what to do. We'll see how well I get on. Isn't that the only beast? Discover the Yabby's weak point. Okay. It's not the horns. The jaw. Gabby's entire body is protected by a hard carapace, but the underside of the head looks soft and vulnerable. looks like you found a yabby. They say hitting their shells like smacking a rock. Any suggestions? Aim for the soft underside of the head. Just hit it as hard as... Vulnerable into the head, are they? Right then. Wish me luck. Thanks, MSQ. I did just as you told me, and the wavekin went down like a sack of potatoes. Let's find something else. I think I can handle the yabbies now, so we should try something different. What else is out there? Obad's hands are large and powerful, but destroying its crystallized core should render the salt golem inanimate. You sense power pulsating from behind its brow. Phobad, how do I defeat one of those? Destroy the core within its brow. Indeed, inside its head. I'll try to stab it right between the eyes then. Flatten it. It's not easy. Fighting with the Liberator Valamigo, watching your every move, but I got the job done. Thanks for the advice, MSQ. Feel a lot better prepared for my patrols now. Any road, we should head back to the Sultry before Granddad starts to worry I've snipped into pieces and fed into a Yabby's hatchlings. I see you've returned in one piece. Got with those beasties then, did you? Fought them myself, after a bit of instruction from MSQ here, like. Once I've shared what I've learned with the others, we should have no trouble keeping the shoreline clear. Good lad. A fine young man you've become, Whisker. A fine young man indeed. Too often of late I hear tales of folk over in the city, drunk on victory and hungry for revenge, their heads stuck firmly in the past. But we need to set our sights on the future, on things that will improve our lot. Things like getting the Sultry ready to welcome our long-lost countrymen. It seems Whisker has Sultry's security well in hand. I, meanwhile, have discussed the next steps with Master Watt and completed my inspection of the site. With little work, the vacant buildings here could be made into very presentable dwellings. Message from General Aldine. Apologies for their interruption, sir, but the General would speak with you at your earliest convenience. Do not feel obliged to wait around on my account. I will remain here to hammer out the finer details with Watt and act as an intermediary with our business partners in Ul'dah. You should go. General Aldine asked that you wait for him by the main gate in the Alamigan Quarter. My apologies again, sir. Fare you well. I honestly don't know what this could be about. But I guess we'll find out in the next one. I feel like that's a good stopping point. And it feels like we're starting to gear up towards something, so that's good. But we'll definitely leave it off here. We'll see you in the next one. I hope you've enjoyed MSQ so far, whether it's your first time or if you're rewatching alongside my playthrough. Hope you're enjoying yourself, and we'll see you.